safety management system. What does it mean? It originates from the word safety, which means the condition of being protected from or unlikely to cause danger, risk, harm, or injury. Basically, it means how do we enhance safety. So that is why when we discuss safety management systems, it is nothing but set of tools and processes to formally manage a structured safety program. I want you to focus on two things here. When we discussed safety, there were two important points. One was condition and the second was protection. So condition means transient, protection means from danger, risk, harm, or injury. Keep this in mind because when we discuss risk, we will again associate it with safety. The second part is in one line, if I were to say what is SMS, it is a systematic approach to managing safety. But how do you do that? By creating the necessary organizational structures, laying down the responsibilities, the vision, mission, role, as well as tasks for each and every individual within the organization, for identifying the policies, procedures, processes, as well as SOPs, and to define the accountabilities at each and every level of the organization. So here we are talking not only of creating, and who does it? Who creates this structured safety program? It is created by the safety manager. The problem is not in creating the safety program. I'm sure all the FTOs have detailed safety program. I'm sure there would be documents, there would be manuals, which will be hundreds of pages that nobody reads and it lies in dust for long periods of time and only brought out when DGCA or representatives come for inspection. The second part is why it is the accidents are still happening is because of one word, implementation. There is hardly any focus on implementation. There is focus on preparation of documents. So our entire process of audit also is focusing on documentation rather than on whether the implementation of the policies, processes, and procedures is taking place or not. Let's do an analysis of 100 years. Now, I'm going to be very frank throughout this lecture, and you would not have heard of things being spoken so openly as I'm going to discuss it today. Look at the accidents that have taken place in the last 100 years. The maximum accidents that took place were in the World War II period, that is from 1939 to 1945, and again in the mid 70s. And when was the first heavier than air flight that had taken place? 17 December 1903 by the two Wright brothers. The first flight was just for 12 seconds and 120 feet, and this maximum time that they flew was for 59 seconds and 852 feet. This is 17 December 1903. And look at the accident rates in 1930s, 40s, and then 70s. You can understand that maximum growth and technology upliftment has taken place in the aviation sector. It is always in the front of technology development. And as technology developed, the accident rates have also come down. But again, there are many other causes because of which still the accident rates are very high. Now, when we look at fatalities, again, when we look at fatalities, the World War II period is maximum. Thereafter, 70s and 80s, then they have tended to come down till they are 1,000 to 1,200 fatalities a year, which means 100 to 120 accidents and 1,000 to 1,200 fatalities a year. Yesterday, I told you, the Indigo aircraft had done tail touch. There were so many accidents this year that have taken place. I'll be covering them soon. The technical factors initially, because technology was not so good initially, the technical factors played a major role in our safety thinking. Then the human factors came in when we realized that human error was also causing accidents. And lastly, we identified that unless the organization as a whole fails, the major accidents will not take place. That is Cat A accidents, which we call Cat 1 in the Air Force, will not take place. This is just 6 or 7 days back, there was an American Airlines flight in Denver International Airport that caught fire on ground. They're going to investigate this. They're going to tell us. But as an organization as a whole has failed in this particular incident, we'll come to know about the details later. This is just to make you aware that basically, if there is an accident happening, then the entire FTO is to blame. Don't say the weather was bad, the fog was there. I will cover all these aspects and then relate it to the accidents. What happens when the Aircraft Accident Investigation Board comes? They focus, you'll see hundred of pages of the report. Where is the focus on? What happened? Who did what? When did it take place? Means the timelines. इस पे 100 पेज चले जाएंगे, लेकिन जहां पे जो मीट ऑफ द मैटर है, रूट कॉज क्या था एक्सीडेंट का, वो शायद कभी बाहर निकल के ही ना आए. Why is rarely focused at, and how we can prevent it in future is also rarely focused at. Some of the AAIBs have been very nice. I will show you their report also, and they have clearly highlighted where the faults lay. But some have also been cover-ups. For example, Captain Vimal, he took off at 11 p.m., around 11 p.m. from Riva, Chorita. What happened? Visibility in January months, everybody knows in the north, comes down significantly after 9 o'clock at night. What was the panic to take off? Why did the aircraft after taking off couldn't find the runway back? Means immediately after takeoff, after that, when they wanted to come back, he hit the temple of a dome and thereafter crashed just ahead of the temple in the grove of mango trees. Even God was telling you, please wake up. सी टेम्पल के पास क्रैश होने का मतलब है भगवान आपको बता रहा है कि एविएशन इंडस्ट्री इन इंडिया इज राइट नाउ not working to the best manner. And I'll again come back, discuss all these issues to you. So it all deals with the culture that we have, prevailed right from DGCA to the FTOs to the airlines, because finally these people are the ones that you have trained who have gone there to the airlines. So if you're training there is something wrong, then these people make the same mistakes when they land up in airlines. So keep this factor in mind. Let's look at a case study. I'm going to discuss a case study with you, and then I will do a little role play between two. Everyone has to listen to it very carefully. After that, when the role play starts, I will be requesting two people. One who, if he or she is the captain of this aircraft, what he or she would have done. And the other, I will request at the regulatory body what they should do for this, for such accidents. Okay, 11th July 1991. There is a DC-8 aircraft which has been taken on wet lease by Nigeria Airways from National Air Canada. Now, I know all of you know what is wet lease, but I'll quickly define it. Wet lease means when the aircraft is given to another airline with the crew both for flying and maintenance being given by the original or parent company. Which means if National Air Canada has given the aircraft on wet lease to Nigeria Airways, then the pilots who operate it, the crew that operates it, and the crew that maintains it, even in other airfields and other airports, are from National Air Canada. So this aircraft took off on 11 July 1991 from Jeddah in Saudi Arabia for Sokoto, Nigeria. But shortly after takeoff, please listen to this carefully, everyone. Shortly after takeoff, the captain reported pressurization failure. Subsequently, the aircraft was climbing to 3,000 feet when the cabin crew came running inside the cockpit and told the captain, the cabin floor is on fire. The captain turned around the aircraft for landing. Coming for priority landing. By mistake, he used the call sign of National Canada because this aircraft is on wet lease from Canada. So when he is coming for landing at an altitude of 671 meters, 18 kilometers away from the airfield, they saw bodies fall out of the aircraft. 3 kilometers short, the aircraft crashed. It killed all 261 people on board. You can see the photograph of the crashed aircraft. You can see where the cabin has been burning. Now, this question is not for you, but a question is, what could be that factor? So if you say, what could be that factor? People say engine on fire. People say some electrical short circuiting or something like that. But actually, the root cause was underinflated tires, which when they got overheated, it led to a self-sustaining fire, which resulted in first the pressurization pipeline and subsequently the hydraulic pipelines and the cabin floor catching fire. So is this till now clear? I'll go over ahead and tell you some more points before I bring it to your notice to tell me how do we analyze it. Now, the aircraft accident took place on 11 July, but the aircraft had been flying with underinflated tire pressure since 7 July, means 4 days that was flying. It was going to many airports and landing there. Nowhere nitrogen was available for that company. And the project managers were unwilling to accept delay, so they were forcing the technicians to log false readings about the tire pressures and oleo extensions, and had the and also that it was not just one day. This was happening for 4 days, and this was the fourth day when accident took place. Secondly, had the undercarriage been not retracted, because remember all the four tire bursts, when the tire burst, self-sustaining fire started. Therefore, had the undercarriage not been retracted, it would not have been a Cat A accident. There would have been damage when it landed, there would have been some injuries, but it would not have been a Cat A accident, and not all 261 people would have died. The pilot in command identified himself as National Canada 2120. This caused confusion with air traffic control. Landing earlier would have saved lives. The organization culture, this is what I have analyzed, and I'm telling you right from beginning, and then I'll come to the questions. Poor reputation of providing on-time service. That is why they were forcing people to not to accept delays. Mechanical problems with large number of aircraft. A number of incidents had taken place with this airline. And after this accident, Robert Obadia, who was the CEO of National Air Canada, he filed for bankruptcy in May 1993. That is 2 years later. And he pleaded guilty on 8 counts of fraud. He was jailed and then he was released, like it happens with all rich people. Now, this is the basis. Is everybody ready? Because I'm going to switch off, stop sharing, and I'm going to start with the role play now. In the role play, I have two people, Captain Kavita, who's going to tell us what should have the captain, what are the other issues that were there with respect to the accident, which after I've discussed everything, you must have come to know by now most of the issues. But now what can you think ahead? And what should have the captain done?
Sir, during pre-flight, if this could have been suspected like underinflated tires, then this flight maybe I can say a pilot should say no to this flight because of the underinflated tires.
Very nice, Captain Kavita. She has highlighted one very important aspect which I want to cover now so that she can go to the second point. This means either the captain and the crew were not carrying out proper external checks,
Yes.
or it also means they knew, because moment you look at the tires, you see the oleo extension. For every captain and every pilot, a look at the aircraft can tell you whether it's underinflated tires or not. People who have thousands, and this guy had 10,000 hours plus of experience. So if that is so, then the pilots probably knew about it. They were used to shortcuts being taken. What do you think could have been the other thing? Now, when the aircraft rolls for takeoff, what happens? Now, let's say you are going in a car and you have one tire which bursts. Don't you come to know? Now, if you have all four tires bursting and leading to a self-sustaining fire, which implies would the pilot sitting in the aircraft would have come to know about it or not?
He would have definitely come to know, and that is basically, like, once again, like what you covered earlier, the situational awareness. He just carried on with his normal procedures. As compared to that, once he knew that there's a four tire burst, he should have kept the undercarriage down.
Exactly, and done a slow speed check probably, and come back and done a priority landing.
Just dump fuel, do a low speed check, and come back and land comfortably.
Very nice. Very nice, sir. So now we have realized there are two things. One, external check. Second, for 4 days the aircraft was flying. This means that the maintenance side, they have their telephone connection networks with all the bases ahead and with the central command also. That is National Air Canada at Toronto or Ottawa in Canada. So they would have been telling them, look, nitrogen is not available, the tires are underinflated. This means organizational command must also be telling them, kuch nahi hota, chalta hai, chalta. It's a laissez-faire attitude that was prevailing. So this is the second. Third point is already covered of undercarriage rolling. And now fourth, and also not retracting the undercarriage. Any other point with respect to the accident before we go on to what should regulator do in case such a thing takes place?
The
Anyone else?
wrong call sign he has given to the ITC.
Absolutely, sir. Wrong call sign, which caused, issues with related to giving a height of 3,000 feet, confusion in the mind of air traffic control tower. Now, actually, when the aircraft rolls for takeoff, a lot of times if there is a tire burst, there would be sparks, there would be things left on the runway, there would be clear indications even for anybody sitting in the ATC to know some serious thing has taken place, especially if all the tires are burst. But ATC was also probably not at ball. So this is all the points that we have discussed. Now we come to the issue of what the regulator should be doing. So Captain Sujit Krishna, sir. So what should the regulator do in such a case?
The regulator should maintain the safety priority.
So
It should be banned for the life period, sir. Lifetime.
Okay. So there should be strict action that should be taken. This is exactly what you are saying. Okay. So we'll come to now when we cover the regulatory part and we see what are the actions being taken everywhere in the world, and we'll come to realize. But let's quickly revise this towards the end of aircraft flying with low tires for 4 days. Managers report incorrect readings, pilot not noticing low pressure in tires, pilots not noticing tire burst on takeoff roll, ATC not noticing tire burst, pilots reporting incorrect call sign. All these points have been brought out by you all. And organization culture was laissez-faire, that is casual and careless. Now, this is just last year in August, this incident. Can you see the cowling come out? It's actually scary. This is what is happening. It's not in India alone. The aviation industry all over the world, there are issues with respect to implementation of safety procedure and process. And it is an organization as a whole that has a problem, not just one incident. Most of the accidents that take place are not happening in isolations. It's the iceberg principle. What you see is only 1/4, 3/4 of the iceberg is below water. There are thousands of latent conditions that exist, hundreds of incidents that have taken place, scores of serious incidents take place before a major accident takes place. Like I gave you an example of the National Air Canada, the wet lease aircraft or DC-8. There were so many latent conditions. There are so many incidents that had taken place, but at the end, they never took it seriously. Finally, the major accident took place, taking the lives of 261 people. And you will see as I go ahead, this is repeatedly happening from that time onwards till today. Now look at what happened a few years back in our airlines. All airlines are affected, whether Air India Express, Go First, or whether it is, Indigo, Vistara, or SpiceJet. All airlines have been reporting a large number of incidents. They range from cabin pressurization failure to windshield cracks to engine snags to bird in cockpit. अभी snake नहीं मिला, वो भी जल्दी मिल जाएगा, snake in cockpit. But everything else has taken place. And so the DGCA got worried that serious incidents, and in 2 cases they landed at Karachi. So imagine when it came out that they landed at Karachi. In India, we are very sensitive about doing anything with respect to Pakistan. So moment Karachi name came, the name of all the airlines became mud. So DGCA then took 305 enforcement actions. They were taken against various airlines and also against FTOs for failing to adhere to laid down safety standards and norms and compromising safety of aircraft operations. Now, when I look at the DGCA report of Jan 2020, the one that I covered till now is 2022. But when I look at DGCA report of Jan 2020, they found 2015, no accidents, 2016, no accidents, then 17, 2, 18, 3, 19, 5, and now every year we are trying to break this record. And what was the report after that? DGCA stopped coming out with accident reports. But this was the only one that was available to me, which showed that op reasons account for 70% of total accidents. 20% by engineering, and rest 10% for other reasons. And 56% actions performed incorrectly, which means preventable. 22% for inadequate flight planning and preparation, preventable. So total 78%, but I'll put it at 80% because rest 10% maybe kuch hai iska. 80% of the accidents that have taken place in the FTOs were preventable. So this means there is a casual attitude in some of the FTOs. Now, this is, I'm talking of 2020. Then 2022, kuch change hua. On 16th March, there were two accidents on the same day. In one case, the trainee forgot to lower undercarriage. In the second day, there was a runway excursion. What is runway excursion? Runway excursion means the aircraft goes out of the runway either sideways or overruns the runway. And did it stop? Because after that, they again carried out an audit. DGCA ordered an audit of FTOs. That time there were 32 FTOs. So after 30 out of the 32 FTOs, an initial report came out, which found that the facilities at the airfield or the FTOs were not being maintained as per standard requirements. The runway surface was also worn out. Windsock was found torn, non-standard, and there were many other issues, including testing equipment being used, which was not as per standard requirements or was not calibrated. False logging was carried out in official documents. Let me assure you, if I were to say, ask your heart, today 90% of the FTOs will say that yes, extensive false logging is being carried out. So please keep your heart clean when I'm discussing this issue. What you do thereafter when DGCA representatives come is a different, I'm not telling you anything about that. But let us amongst ourselves be very clear what you are doing and because of which why accidents are taking place. Dual flight was being logged as solo flight. And in few cases, taxi time was calculated towards the instrument flying time, which means you are doing instrument flying on ground itself. Few instructors, student pilots, and maintenance engineers did not undergo breath analyzer test. Actually, it was more their records were not being maintained. Whether the tests were carried out or not is not the issue, but their records were not being maintained properly. So now what we have done, we are maintaining the records, whether we carry out or not. But our records are being maintained very nicely. Deficiency in ground training of student pilots not being appropriately briefed or trained on emergencies and essential exercises, ad hocism in the allocation of instructors. What it means is, एक सॉटी एक इंस्ट्रक्टर के साथ, दूसरी सॉटी दूसरे के साथ, तीसरी किसी और के साथ, फिर एक के साथ. So who's monitoring their progress? Nobody. It is kick the tire, light the fire, and let's go and finish the hours because अगर वो मेरे पास नहीं आएगा तो वो कहीं और चला जाएगा. तो उसको अपने पास पकड़ के रखो, उसको 10 दिन के अंदर मुझे इतनी सॉटी फ्लाई करानी है, उसको 15 दिन में इतनी फ्लाई करानी. So it is kick the tire, light the fire, and a laissez-faire attitude. Emergency response plan not practiced. So what did DGCA do? Because they also are answerable to the public of India. They are also answerable to the minister. So they suspended approval of one FTO, issued warning letters to 2 accountable managers, suspended 4 CFIs, 3 DCFIs, 1 AFI, and 1 student for a period ranging between 3 months to 1 year. Kuch hua usse? Anything happened? This is June 2022. Same month. I will tell you later how more accidents took place after this special audit was carried out. Here, look at this. What an AAIB report is saying. Deeper and closer look into the report of the audit team indicates that the purpose of this audit was not proactive, but rather to restart the flying activities of the FTOs at the earliest. Surveillance audit carried out by DGCA were not in true letter and spirit. Procedural anomalies and safety lapses observed during investigation could have been easily captured during the audit. So what it is telling you is, all these audits are only namesake. They are carried out because you have to restart the flying and you have to show the government and the people of India that हमने कुछ किया है. सस्पेंड करके वापस वही लोग आ गए हैं. ये नहीं कि सस्पेंड के बाद उनमें से किसी को रिमूव किया गया. Same people are still come back in. Then once this audit came out, 6 June again, we had aircraft went out of runway during takeoff roll. Now look at Redbird. I'll come to Redbird again. Hard landing at Baramati runway, heavy impact on the aircraft's nose landing gear. 13 June landing outside the aerodrome. 25 July similar thing in a cross country power loss landing outside the aerodrome. कुछ बदला, कुछ नहीं बदला. आज भी कुछ बदला है, कुछ नहीं बदला है. And क्यों नहीं बदला मैं बताता हूं. We are talking of Captain Vimal Kumar. Remember I mentioned this incident to you. Took off at 11 p.m. at night. Now, everybody knows in North India, when you take off on 5th January, In North India, in the Chorhata strip, Riva, the visibility drops rapidly as the fog starts coming in and there is dense fog. He took off, couldn't find the runway back, hit the dome of temple, hit a mango tree and fell just in front of the dome of temple as the picture shows. My request to you all is, God is telling you, wake up. This incident was God telling you, ki, please wake up. And when the inquiry has come out, they blamed it on dense fog. Was that the root cause? I want to know why did a senior chief flying instructor with thousands of hours of instruction took off at that time of night, knowing very well he's going to kill himself as well as injure the other pilot, Sonu Yadav. Now, this has not come out in the inquiry, and this will never come out, the true cause. And that is what I meant, that eventually entire thing is a hogwash that is taking place, whether it is audit or whether it is inquiries. Now, look at this incident. We had two accidents in 4 days of Redbird, and in 6 months, 5 accidents. And what is scary is not that there were 5 accidents in 6 months of Redbird. What is scary is they've got a tie-up with, Airbus to provide pilot training to its students on Airbus 320 aircraft, which means whatever pilots or trainees they have passed out who have gone are flying Airbus, my family or I may be traveling in that aircraft, your families or you may be traveling in that aircraft tomorrow. And what kind of quality of training would have been carried out? So what did they do? They suspended the operations of Redbird for how long? This was October 2023. February 2024, they were still flying. In 2022, if Captain Mamta remembers, 2021-22 had clearly indicated that there is something seriously wrong in these presentations with the DGCA. But nothing happened. Uske baad, when so many accidents took place, then there was an anonymous email and they took some action. And eventually there were two. One was Captain Vivek Chabra, who was the CFOI, whose services were terminated. Other was Anil Gill, who allegations were was demanding money from each of the FTOs and was even included, taken some aircraft cheaply from them on throwaway price. Now, these are allegations. But there is hardly any investigation that has taken place. He was also suspended on Jan 2024. So now I felt that maybe things will improve because DGCA, the top watchdog itself, is taking actions, probably at the intervention of the political leadership. You got to do something now. There are so many accidents that have taken place. So they have done something, but they also transferred 9 officials from their location. So there was some action taken. But uske baad kya hua? Now we have looked at Alchemist Airways ka. We had a serious accident where the crash, the regulator conducted a special audit of the flying school on August 23 and 24, 2024. It killed both the pilots because they were flying unauthorized. Unauthorized flying was being carried out over dam. No, when we are talking of this unauthorized flying, this is what is overconfidence that I was trying to highlight to you at that period of time. And what happens after this August 23, 24, I want you to read very carefully. Initially, the report of the DGCA, which said the suspension comes after a special safety audit conducted on August 23 and 24 found the organization being non-compliant with regulations. On one hand, they are saying non-compliant with the regulation, they suspended it in August end. But what happens in December? They have changed their mind. What have they done? I don't know what they have done, but they have changed their mind. And now I want to read out what the DGCA feels at that time. However, a team of DGCA officers conducted a detailed evaluation of our facilities, aircraft and operations. This is what the same academy is telling. After we demonstrated satisfactory compliance, the DGCA has hence revoked our suspension. However, no penalties were imposed as the institute was deemed not at fault. So who is right? When DGCA first says they were being non-compliant with the regulations, are they right? Or later on, DGCA feels no, they are compliant. And 40 lakhs of money these guys got, this aviation FTO got. Why? From the insurance company. I can't believe this. I can't believe how a mind of a regulatory body can change in a period of just 2 months. On one side, first they blame him because everybody was saying 2 pilots ki death ho gayi, 2 families have been written off. Now, has anything improved? So after that, September 2024, we are very good at special audits. Another time, special audit carried out. इसकी रिपोर्ट आज तक मैंने कहीं किसी न्यूज़पेपर में नहीं देखी है. 33 FTOs were supposed to be assessed. But did the accident stop? Again, in December, we had Akasa Air. So DGCA suspends two senior Akasa Air officials. Who are these people? Director of Training and Director of Operations, because there were lapses in pilot training. How long? For 6 months. But what happens to the airline management? They have no responsibility. The airlines is still continuing. 1 week back's case, Indigo aircraft touches tail. Again, training issues. Has anything changed in our country in last 4 years, despite multiple special audits and special audits, and people getting suspended for few months and they are back in business again? So points to ponder is their organization as a whole casual approach towards flying operations, safety and maintenance activities? I'm telling you, yes, from DGCA down to individual FTOs, everybody's at fault. Let me assure you, you may think you're doing an exceptionally good job. When an outsider like me comes and has a general look also, I can tell you so many things are going on. How are unserviceable aircraft being declared serviceable? Is there not a planned way to conduct flying operations? Planning is just about 1 day before. That too, by the end of the day, you are deciding what the next day the other person is going to do. Why briefings and debriefings are not taking place seriously, and why emergencies are not being practiced? Why are people not being put onto the unserviceable aircraft and made to practice checks? Nothing. If there is chai and pakoda time, everybody is having chai and pakoda rather than sitting in the cockpit and going over their checks and procedures. Why are supervisory lapses continuing? Are FTOs merely organizations for logging hours? There is no doubt in my mind. They are just there to provide the hours to the trainee who comes, and they'll go out of their way to do it, even if it means flying of the trainee by 10 different instructors at 10 different times, and overlogging everything they'll do so that he can finish flying and go. Please, let's look in-house and do what we can do. And what of the accidents are taking place in takeoff and landing phase? 14% of fatal accidents happen during takeoff and 49% during landing. So my request now, I'm going to stop the presentation here. We are going to discuss. We can't change the culture of our country as far as regulatory body is concerned. But if we make a change in ourselves, remember Mahatma Gandhi had said very clearly, you should be the change that you want to see in this world. You want to be a great instructor, you want to be a legend, then forget this greed factor. You know, the root cause of all these accidents investigations is not what is mentioned in the reports. It is greed. Greed by the FTO owners or management, which wants to fly more but does not want to fly safely. So हार्ट से पूछोगे तो मैं सही कह रहा हूं. हाँ, मेरे को मना करने के लिए आप 1000 स्टैटिस्टिक्स दे सकते हो, लेकिन दिल को अपने मानोगे तो आप कहोगे बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं. अब मैं आपसे पूछता हूं कि अगर हम बाकी कुछ नहीं कर सकते, हम अपने प्रोसीजर्स और प्रोसेसेस को तो अच्छा बना सकते हैं और काम को देखें तो बेटर है. तो क्यों ना हम वो करें जो हमारे देश के लिए सही है, हमारी एविएशन इंडस्ट्री के लिए सही है. तो उसके लिए सबसे पहली चीज जो हमको करनी है, हमें फोकस करना है ऑन टेक ऑफ एंड लैंडिंग फेज, बिकॉज एंड दैट इन्वॉल्व्स योर वेदर ऑल्सो, that involves your visibility also, crosswind limitations also, many other things that come along with it. People forgetting lowering undercarriage or runway excursions that are taking place. So my request, I will ask one by one to each one, please tell me how we can look at stabilizing our approaches, focusing on speeds, weather conditions, gusts, wind shear, touching tail, and how can focus on this critical phase of takeoff and landing so that we minimize at least 2/3 of all accidents. So we'll start from Mayank's Gerg, and then I'll keep asking as it is being visible here, your input so that we can write down and we can all learn from each other. Mayank, what is one thing that you would like to see a change in takeoff and landing, which beyond what we are usually doing?
So first of all, I'd like to start with something which you just pointed out in the last slide. Are FTOs meant, or are FTOs just there to log hours? I strongly disagree with it, sir. I believe you've not spoken to the current set of students which are coming in. To be honest, as a chief flying instructor who has been a chief flying instructor for about 10 years now, I can say one thing: it is not the FTOs which have drastically changed or the instructors which have drastically changed. The students themselves are the ones who are wanting to complete their flying in the shortest possible time. They are not at all inclined to learn flying. They do not have the inclination towards flying itself. Their only intent is to complete 200 hours, get a CPL, get a job. And I think I've pointed this out in your previous refreshers as well. I have seen this trend, and I must say I'm a little frustrated by it because I don't like teaching this way. If I am teaching students, I would like them to be, interested in flying itself. The students have no interest. I mean, it's very surprising how somebody can not have any interest in flying. But the fact is, 90% of the students, which all of us are inducting, and I would say more than 90% also, in fact, in certain batches, they have no interest whatsoever towards flying. Now, if you've got somebody on the controls who is actually not trying to learn and just trying to, pass his or her time and get done with it, then you can't really expect a lot of improvements. And if you see, I have the statistics with me, but like you said, there's no point in mentioning so many statistics. And it is not about proving anybody right or wrong. But the fact is, majority accidents which have happened are during solo flights, and most of them during takeoffs or landings. So a part of it, I do agree that it is the instructor's fault that they have released students prematurely, and some of them, the instructors have pushed the students to go for cross country flights, and we know that DGCA ended up taking certain such instructors as FOIs, and they're still continuing as CFIs without any action or anything. Now, that does set a wrong example altogether. But that is a very minute percentage if you see so. And I do agree that we need to reduce even that minute percentage. But majority accidents or incidents have happened during takeoff and landing, like you rightly said. Most of it, I would believe, given it's all training sorties, is as far as you could read the reports, and the versions you get to hear are because of the instructors prematurely releasing solos. A part of it, I would also blame it on the fact that the requirements for instructors have been drastically changed in the past few years. Earlier, to become an FI, you had to do 30 hours of patter flying, and then you had to the CFI is actually, I've trained under Captain Bhalla himself, so I know how serious he was in training instructors, especially. But nowadays, that trend has completely changed. Everybody wants to get the things done very quickly, whether it be becoming an AFI, whether it be becoming an FI. So we have not just lowered the students have not just lowered their standards, but the instructors themselves have also lowered their standards to some extent, and this is all accumulating and causing all these problems basically.
Thank you, Mayank. Thanks a ton for giving, because I want to give opportunity to everybody. So,
please.
and that is the reason why I was started by saying that from teaching we must get into the learning mode now. That is what is required. So now I want to request Rajiv sir to give input, since I also learned flying from him, and I would like to hear him also, sir.
Basically, in a nutshell, not going into too much in detail, it is the training is the only problem for which the accidents are taking place is the training. The training, due to certain reason, basically because of the industry requirement, few years back, the standards were lowered. And then we can continue to follow that. And once we lower the standards are lowered for the instructors as well as for the trainees also. And the trainees are taking it as a normal job, not that as a passion. It's a totally different type of job as such. So that is the reason. In short, I'll say it's all related to training.
Okay, very nice, sir. And I would like inputs now on how can we reduce accidents in the takeoff and landing phase.
Sir, can I add on? Sir, can I add on to Captain Bhalla?
Sir, please.
Sir, if we instructors, whosoever is given opportunity to train the instructors, if they will be strict to increase the instructors' training, I think that will be more effectively can happen in the flight schools. I mean to say that if I am given opportunity to train an instructor as AFI, first of all, I should select a student who is capable enough to compete with the industry. I mean, he's a good instructor. He can become a good instructor or not. Secondly, when we are giving instructional flying or patrol flying to him, he should be treated as a student as he is having 200 hours. But the same time, if we are giving him one exercise, he should plan the lesson, he should execute the lesson, and after that, he should come back and he should tell you the what are the mistakes he has done. If we instructors will become a more strict on producing the instructors, will really affect on the industry.
Very nice, sir. Thank you very much for the input. And here, Gen Z is what you are training, and also now the new generation that is coming up beyond Gen Z. So all these people want to be involved with the process. They are looking at the fruits first, which my friend Mayank had also mentioned, that they are looking at completing the hours. They are not interested in the labor that goes through to reach those hours. They just want to get those hours to say कि मुझे job मिल जाएगा. So we are looking at the characteristics of Gen Z and the next gen also, which has come up, and we need to involve themselves. And that is why I want to re-emphasize, please start with what Captain Budhi Raja is also saying, and please start with making the learning processes more strong by making them only give briefings and maneuvers. Now, Captain Kavita, how would you like to improve the approach and landing phase part where the maximum accidents are taking place?
Sir, definitely we can reduce accidents and incidents during takeoff and landing phase by briefing our students for proper how to handle the situations, like different type of approaches and what you will take decisions, like when to go around, and high speed approaches, like low speed approaches, what action should taken during those approaches. So, sir, definitely that will do some full
So
job.
what she's telling us is that please do practice discussions, case studies of each and every individual element of a stabilized approach, whether it is the speed, high round off, low round off, higher speed round off, lower speed round off. What is going to happen? Are we still doing that sync checks, or what happens in case the aircraft bounces? What happens in case the aircraft floats for a long period of time? So all those discussions must be carried out regularly as case studies. And then, yes, Captain Parag Das, sir. Now, one thing which Captain Budhi Raja had mentioned, training of flight instructors. Now, earlier, there were checks carried out, and there are still requirement of checks being carried out of the instructors and the ability to give, instruction, their communication skills, their patter, their ability to handle difficult situations in air. Now, is that being done with regularity and right intent even now, or we are more focused on giving the trainee the flight?
No, sir, we are focusing on their performance and their proficiency level also. And sir, truly speaking, that all trainees that they come for AFIR, initial AFIR training are not eligible to become an instructor. But what we do is that because of we need a battery student, financial part is also covered. So we carry out their pattern flying and later on they become an instructor. So it is better, sir, during the CPL period only the CFI should write that whether this student is eligible for becoming an instructor tomorrow or not. And what is I do basically, sir, any student that comes to me for a patrol flying, first I carry out a proficiency flight. If he is okay, I conduct his pattern, otherwise I reject him at that time only.
Thank you, sir.
To emphasize on the basic technique of the takeoff roll. When we are opening a power, from that point only it starts. So I think if we emphasize on the basic technique of the flights, that will be more, effective for the train.
At 11:45, we'll join back and then we'll cover the last session.